Launched in Japan on October 20th, 1985, the Sega Mark III, also known as the Master System, is an 8-bit console that would significantly influence the world of gaming in ways many did not foresee. Although it did not achieve the same level of widespread success as its 16-bit successor, the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis as it was called in North America, or even its main competitor with the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, which dominated the market at the time, the Master System still managed to establish its own legacy. A legacy which reflects its origins, its lasting impact on gaming culture, and its role in Sega's journey within the console industry. In the mid-1980s, Sega was a well-known arcade powerhouse, responsible for hit games like Space Harrier, Outrun, Hang On, Afterburner, among many others. However, the company was relatively new to the home console market. With the overwhelming success of Nintendo's rise in the home console market in general, Sega needed a way to compete in the rapidly expanded market, so entered the Sega Master System. Originally released as the Sega Mark III in Japan, the Master System was a refinement of Sega's earlier SG-1000 system, aimed at the growing market of 8-bit consoles, which debuted with more advanced hardware than its competitors, offering superior graphical and sound capabilities. With its improved processing power and vibrant colours, the Master System, or Mark III, was a technically capable machine that would soon captivate gamers worldwide. The console was officially rebranded as the Sega Master System when it launched outside of Japan in 1986. Sega marketed it as an alternative to the NES, boasting its powerful graphics, extensive library of arcade ports, and even adding in its own lineup of iconic mascots, with the likes of Alex Kidd and later with Sonic the Hedgehog a few years later. But even diving back to its origins, during the mid-1980s, the video game industry was experiencing a revival following the crash of 1983. Nintendo had successfully revitalized the market with the NES system, dominating both North America and Japan. And in this context, Sega, a well-known Japanese game developer and hardware manufacturer, set out to create a home console that could compete with the NES, not only in Japan but also globally. This ambition led to the development of the Sega Master System, which was designed to attract international audiences and establish Sega as a major player in the home console market. With the system releasing originally as the Sega Mark III in 1985 and then being rebranded as the Sega Master System, or SMS, for Western audiences, launching in North America in 1986 and then in Europe and other regions not too soon after. The rebranding of the console was more than cosmetic, as it was a strategic move to be seen as a serious competitor to the NES. The Mark III's hardware was technically superior in several aspects, featuring a wider colour palette, higher resolution and enhanced sound capabilities. Sega intended to capitalise on these advantages to attract gamers seeking a more advanced visual and audio experience. One of Sega's key strategies to appeal to audiences outside of Japan was its marketing approach. Nintendo had already forged exclusive licensing agreements with third-party developers, restricting them from producing games on other consoles. As a result, Sega had to heavily rely on its own internal development teams to create compelling software, and as a result, Sega would end up porting many of its popular arcade titles to the system, such as Outrun, Space Harrier, Hang On, Afterburner, Shinobi, and quite a few others, to fans in the West. These fast-paced, virtually striking games helped position the Master System as a console for more serious and mature gamers, in contrast to the more family-friendly image cultivated by Nintendo. Sega made efforts to establish a distribution network and form marketing partnerships tailored to specific regions. In North America, they initially partnered with the toy giant Tonka, which struggled to effectively market the console. This misstep would hinder the Master System's performance in the US, where it never gained a significant market share compared to the NES. However, Sega learned from this failure and regained control of distribution in 1988, setting the stage for future success with the Genesis, which would be known as the Mega Drive in Europe and in other regions. The Master System experienced significantly greater success in Europe and South America compared to other regions. In Europe, Sega collaborated with Virgin Mastertronic, a savvy distributor that aggressively marketed the console and secured shelf space in prominent retailers. As a result, the Master System became particularly popular in the United Kingdom, France, and various parts of Western Europe. In Brazil, the console achieved near iconic status through a licensing agreement with Tectoy, and this partnership allowed for the localization of games and to develop new content specifically for the Brazilian market, which would see manufacturing of the system continue well into the 2000s. While the Master System ultimately failed to dethrone the NES in Japan and North America, Sega. It succeeded in establishing Sega's presence in more international markets, and these lessons learned from the Master System's development and marketing were instrumental in Sega's later success with the Mega Drive or Genesis, which would go on to challenge Nintendo more effectively in the 16-bit era. The development of the Sega Master System was a bold effort to compete globally with the NES through superior hardware, strategic rebranding and international partnerships. The Master System would be a console that, despite being overshadowed in some markets, laid the groundwork for a stronger global presence, one of resilience, adaptation and early ambition in the face of fierce competition, making it a significant chapter in the history of video gaming. The Sega Master System's library featured a variety of exciting games, many of which would become beloved classics. Though it didn't match the NES in terms of the number of titles released, the console more than made up for it in quality, with some games that still stand the test of time as iconic pieces of gaming history. One of the Master System's flagship titles, Alex Kidd in Miracle World, was a charming platformer that introduced players to the adventures of one of Sega's original mascots, with Alex Kidd. Featuring tight controls, imaginative level design and vibrant graphics, Miracle World showcased the potential of the console, and yet, which would also go on to spawn quite a number of sequels on the system, although that did vary in quality and weren't seen as successful, leading to the series eventually fading into obscurity, mainly due to the rise of Sonic the Hedgehog, but the game still remains a fond memory for many Sega fans. A groundbreaking RPG, Phantasy Star took full advantage of the Master System's hardware and pushed the boundaries of what was expected in 8-bit role-playing games. Set in a futuristic world, Phantasy Star featured an intricate storyline, turn-based battles and immersive dungeon exploration. It was one of the first ever RPGs to introduce 3D dungeon crawling mechanics, and solidified the Phantasy Star series as a beloved Sega franchise. Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap, which released in 1989, is often cited as one of the best 8-bit games ever made. A colourful action-adventure platformer, it featured tight controls, memorable character transformations, and stunning graphics. The game's progression through various forms allowed for new abilities, which added a layer of strategy and exploration. Its re-releases and remakes in the years since have kept its legacy alive, solidifying it as an absolute classic. A faithful port of the hit arcade game, Shinobi on the Master System showcased Sega's prowess in delivering quality action games. As a ninja, players faced wave after wave of enemies, using a combination of fast-paced action and special power to overcome tough enemies. Shinobi became a staple of the Master System's library, even spawning sequels and spin-offs that would appear on later Sega consoles, with a revitalization of the series now in the works in the modern era. Although Sonic the Hedgehog is mostly associated with the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis, it also received ports on the Master System and Sega Game Gear, with its fast-paced, colourful platforming that quickly made an impression and became a defining characteristic of Sega's identity. By the time Sonic hit the Mega Drive, it had already captured the imagination of fans and helped establish Sega as a major player in the console market. The The Sega Master System's greatest strength lay in its ability to faithfully recreate the electrifying arcade experience within the comfort of home gaming. Sega's arcade to console conversion, Mastery, transformed the Master System into a portal to bring you into the world of the 1980s arcade scene and culture, delivering coin-op classics that captured the essence of coin-eating alternatives. Outrun stands as perhaps the most iconic arcade port in the Master System's history, successfully translating Sega's groundbreaking sprite-scaling racing simulator into 8-bit glory. Despite the console's technical limitations, the Master System version retained the original sense of speed, featuring the smoothly animated Ferrari Testarossa gameplay, branching route selection, and that unforgettable synthesized soundtrack. Players could experience the thrill of high-speed coastal highway racing without stepping foot in an arcade. Space Harrier brought Yu Suzuki's surreal fantasy shooter home with remarkable fidelity, maintaining the original's checkerboard landscapes and bizarre enemy encounters. The Master System adaptation cleverly utilised colour cycling techniques and sprite manipulation to simulate the arcade's pseudo 3D environments, allowing players to pilot their jet-powered warrior through alien worlds filled with massive dragons, grotesque monsters and floating stoneheads. Hang On delivered motorcycle racing thrills that captured the arcade cabinet's distinctive tilting bi-controller experience through standard gameplay controls. The Master System port featured multiple race tracks, realistic motorcycle physics for an 8-bit system, and challenging AI opponents that demanded precision handling and strategic overtaking maneuvers. Afterburner translated Sega's intense jet fighter combat simulator into a Master System showcase of technical prowess. The port maintained the original's blistering pace, featuring scaling enemy sprites, ground-based targets, and aerial dogfights that pushed the console's processing capabilities to their absolute limits. Players could experience Top Gun-style aerial warfare complete with missile lock-on systems and dramatic explosion effects. Altered Beast delivered mythological, shape-shifting action that transformed ordinary warriors into powerful creatures. The Master System adaptation maintained the original's distinctive Rise from Your Grave voice samples and dramatic transformation sequences, proving that 8-bit consoles could handle complex arcade experiences. While not seen as the best game made of all of these ports, with a better entry seen on the later 16-bit Mega Drive, but it was impressive to see a graphical powerhouse such as this game still being able to run on the system for its time. It was quite impressive indeed. Fantasy Zone brought psychedelic horizontal shooting action to the Master System, with its distinctive pastel colour palette and cute 'em up gameplay mechanics. The port featured smooth scrolling backgrounds, creative power-up systems and whimsical enemy designs that established a uniquely Japanese gaming aesthetic in Western markets. R-Type represented one of the most technically impressive arcade conversions, featuring the iconic force pod attachment system, biomechanical alien designs, and punishing difficulty levels that arcade veterans demanded. The Master System version proved that complex shoot-'em-up mechanics could translate successfully to home console hardware, and to this day is still one of the only available console ports of the arcade that can be seen released from Sega on original hardware. Golden Axe brought sword and sorcery beat-em-up action, with fast-paced action, magic spells, and gameplay that recreated the arcade's gaming experience. Although a lot of content and even some of the characters were cut from this version, it was still impressive to see it running on the system. Alien Syndrome delivered intense sci-fi rescue missions that combined top-down shooting action with exploration elements. The Master System port maintained the arcade's claustrophobic, alien-infested corridors, featuring multiple playable characters, weapon power-ups, and time-pressured hostage rescue scenarios that created genuine tension as players battled through extraterrestrial hordes to save trapped comrades. Alien Storm displayed side-scrolling sci-fi beat-em-up action in a futuristic style setting, where the world and many of its cities are being invaded by alien creatures from outer space. So you will take on the role of a series of characters, equipped with different abilities and weapons, to destroy the enemies and literally send them back to where they came from. Not the best of these ports, as there was also another one later released on the Sega Mega Drive, but again it was an impressive attempt to bring the arcade scene to the home console. Sega's unique position as both arcade manufacturer and console creator provided distinct advantages in their conversion process. Their intimate knowledge of arcade hardware architecture, combined with the Master System's superior colour palette and sound capabilities compared to its competitors, resulted in home ports that genuinely captured the arcade experience, rather than merely approximating it. These conversions weren't just technical achievements, they were cultural bridges that brought the excitement, innovation and pure arcade fun of gaming into homes worldwide, establishing the console as one of the premier destinations for authentic arcade experiences during the 8-bit era. The console's arcade port library represents a golden age of conversion craftsmanship, where technical limitations sparked creative solutions and passionate development teams worked miracles with modest hardware. These ports didn't just preserve arcade classics, they made them more appealing to wider audiences, presenting experiences that were more accessible to players who might never get to visit an arcade cabinet. From the sun-soaked highways of Outrun to the alien landscapes of Space Harrier, Sega's arcade ports transformed the console into a time machine that transported players directly into the heart of the 1980s arcade culture, one cartridge at a time. There are plenty of groundbreaking games and hidden gems that released on the system during its lifespan that were as good as titles seen on later systems, but many of these games or series never went beyond the console, so the only way to access them would be to revisit the original hardware or through emulation. Titles like Kenseiden come to mind, as it was one of the most impressive action-adventure games ever seen on the console, a very underrated title, and is as good as anything that you would see on later systems. Games like the impressive Streets of Rage series port also showcased how capable the console was by benefiting the popular entries on more powerful systems, while still being able to produce original ideas that are often seen in many ways as good as other versions. If we take a look at the Master System version of Disney's iconic Castle of Illusion, which also documents the massive differences between both 8 and 16-bit versions, with the lesser powered alternative adding more variety and playability, often being seen as the definitive version of the game to the current day. Despite Nintendo's overwhelming marketing dominance in the American gaming landscape, Sega's Master System did manage to cultivate a dedicated following among hardcore retro gaming enthusiasts who appreciated its superior hardware capabilities and distinctive arcade-quality titles. The console's true triumph emerged in international markets, where it achieved remarkable commercial success that exceeded way beyond its North American performance. European gaming communities embraced the Master System as their primary 8-bit platform, establishing Sega as a formidable console manufacturer across multiple territories including the United Kingdom, France and Germany. Brazil represents probably the most fascinating chapter in the Master System's history, where the console experienced an unprecedented extended lifespan. The South American market continued receiving official game releases well into the 2000s, a testament to the platform's enduring popularity and the region's unique gaming culture that sustained vintage console gaming long after other markets had moved to next-gen systems. The Master System versus the NES console wars of the late 1980s showcased two fundamentally different approaches to 8-bit gaming. Nintendo's software-focused strategy with iconic first-party exclusives versus Sega's hardware innovation, featuring superior graphics processing and advanced sound capabilities that delivered authentic arcade gaming experiences to home players. Although the success of the Mega Drive eventually overshadowed the Master System, it played a crucial role in establishing Sega as a prominent force in the gaming industry. Its innovative hardware, exciting library of games, and efforts to push the boundaries of technology helped shape Sega's identity as a company dedicated to gaming excellence. Many of the games released on the Master System still stand as better examples compared to their 16-bit counterparts, which often questions the debate. Better graphics means better games, and this also proves not to be the case, as the Master System is home to plenty of standard experiences that were and are still as good as anything seen on the Mega Drive, even today, as ever. Some of the games we previously mentioned were Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, Castle of Illusion and Kenseiden. All these games proved to be as good, or even seen as better, compared to similar examples that were often seen on the Mega Drive, which was considered to be far superior, which is quite impressive. One of the most interesting aspects of the Master System, despite its commercial challenges, it still managed to push the boundaries of hardware innovation, and it also has one of the most unusual lineups of unique accessories of any system ever conceived. And one of the first accessories to be included with this would come in the form of a light phaser or light gun peripheral that allowed players to engage in shooting games like Safari Hunt and Operation Wolf. Another aspect will be seen with the 3D glasses released in 1987 that were another ambitious attempt to really push the envelope. Though the 3D effects were limited and far from perfect, they demonstrated Sega's interest in developing new technologies for home entertainment. The Master System also allowed for multi-game cartridges that included more than one game on a single cart, making it easier for players to access different titles without needing to purchase additional hardware. This was a feature that, at the time, set the Master System apart from other consoles. But even if we dive deeper into the wacky nature of a lot of these peripherals and accessories, they were innovative, bizarre and downright strange, but still managed to transform the humble system into a multimedia entertainment hub that pushed the boundaries of what home gaming could achieve, which felt way ahead of its time. If we look back at the light phaser, it represented Sega's answer to Nintendo's Zapper, but with a distinctly futuristic aesthetic that made players feel like sci-fi bounty hunters. This sleek light gun accessory delivered pinpoint accuracy for shooting games like Safari Hunt and Wanted, featuring an ergonomic design that outclassed many contemporary light gun controllers. The phaser's distinctive trigger and smooth body became iconic symbols of the Master System's culture. Even if we look at some of the games that not only released on cartridges but also smaller cards, while they were limited, they were more focused on the early gen system that had an additional slot available that you could play many of these games, so if you were a classic collector, these would be worth adding. But they were another great alternative to play these games. The 3D glasses were probably the most ambitious peripheral seen on the system, with its revolutionary stereoscopic stereoscopic visual elements that transported players into genuine 3D dimensional worlds, decades before modern VR technology. These battery-powered shutter glasses synchronized specially designed games like Space Harrier 3D, Maze Hunter 3D, and Outrun 3D, creating immersive depth perception that seemed like magic to 1980s gamers, becoming a symbol of retro-futuristic gaming innovation. Sega's controller evolution would also tell a fascinating story of ergonomic experimentation. The original Gen 1 pad featured a simple rectangular design with sharp corners that challenged players' endurance during marathon gaming sessions, but would have some subtle changes compared to later models, having like a small joystick feature within the middle of the control pad and the actual power cable coming out from the side rather than what would be seen on the top on later editions. However, due to some of the limitations with these earlier controllers, they would also release the SG Commander control pad, which offered improved comfort and rounded edges and more responsive directional controls for a more well-rounded experience. There would also be later editions with an infrared remote controller, a wireless gaming solution that eliminated cord tangles and allowed players unprecedented freedom of movement. This cutting-edge peripheral used infrared technology to communicate with the console, making it feel like something from the future. What was interesting about this peripheral is that it was designed in the shape of the later Mega Drive controller, giving a nod to Sega's hardware development endeavours. But yet there would be other accessories available that would come in the form of the rapid fire unit, which would extend the controllability of the ordinary controllers. They would allow your automatic weapons, especially during shooting games, to fire relentlessly without you constantly having to press a button. They would give you almost superhuman abilities within these games. This small but mighty accessory attached directly to the standard controllers, turning single shots into devastating bullet storms that made games like R-Type significantly more manageable. The Sega Sportspad trackball controller was also a unique turn of events that wasn't often seen with games, which delivered arcade authentic experiences for sports simulations and action games, and in some regions would come packaged with some well-known sports games such as Great Hockey. The smooth rolling trackball provided analog style precision control that standard directional pads couldn't match, making it essential for games requiring nuanced movement and aiming. Racing game enthusiasts could upgrade their experience with Sega's futuristic steering wheel, a full-sized driving controller that brought authentic automotive handling to the Master System racing titles. This impressive peripheral featured realistic steering mechanics and integrated controls that made players feel like they were piloting actual race cars rather than pressing directional buttons. Sometime after the Sega Mega Drive would release, would see the addition of the Sega Mega Drive Master System converter peripheral, which would represent one of gaming's most ingenious backwards compatibility solutions, which would come in the form as an adapter that allowed Mega Drive owners to play their entire Master System game library on their newer 16-bit system, ensuring that beloved 8-bit classics remained accessible as technology evolved. These eccentric peripherals showcase Sega's experimental spirit and willingness to push gaming boundaries long before motion controls and VR became mainstream. Each accessory represented bold attempts to enhance player immersion and expand gaming possibilities, creating an ecosystem of specialized controllers that made the Master System experience uniquely customizable. From stereoscopic 3D gaming to wireless controllers, Sega's peripheral lineup proved that innovation often comes in the strangest of packages, which would help to establish the Master System as a platform for interactive entertainment experimentation. The Sega Master System remains a cherished piece of gaming history, as retro gaming enthusiasts continue to rediscover the console and its library of classic titles. Various emulation platforms and re-releases have brought the Master System's games back into the limelight, allowing new generations of gamers to experience its charm. Even in the current day, there are fans that are still developing games or homebrews using the original console's software architecture to create their own unique and individual experiences. For many, the Sega Master System represents the beginning of Sega's journey, a journey that would lead to the creation of the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis in the US, the Sega Saturn and the Sega Dreamcast, along with a series of handheld consoles with the Game Gear and Sega Nomad, and the legacy of Sonic the Hedgehog. It's the humble beginning of an empire that would redefine the gaming landscape for many years to come. And for me, it was the first gaming console I ever had the privilege to experience during my early school years through a friend in my class having one that came with 3 games built in. Hang On and Safari Hunt were the main standout games, with the Hidden Snail Trail only being accessible through specific button combinations upon powering on the console. Hang On was the first game I have ever played on the system at the age of 5 years old, and my friend only had a black and white TV at the time, so I didn't get to fully witness the vibrant colours available, but I still couldn't get over what I was seeing, as the only other experience I had before it with video games was on an old Amstrad computer that my dad had borrowed, with games loading for ages on a tape deck or floppy disk. But gaming on the Master System was almost instant, with games loading up in only a few seconds, which proved how fast consoles were at the time. I soon also got to play Safari Hunt, using the light phaser, which was a blast, having only limited shots to hit all of the moving targets on the screen before the time limit ended, with the difficulty increasing in each stage. It's safe to say that with both games I didn't get very far in my first few attempts, but I was insanely addicted to a point that my mum had to drag me from the console to get me home. But all I could think about from that point on was when the next time I was going to get to play the console again. I didn't get to play the hidden snail game until about a few months later, as my friend also didn't know that the game existed on the console that he had, until someone told him at school to try the code to enter on the controller to access it, as the box that came with the console never stated of an extra game. It was among the many unusual marketing tricks used by companies back then, throwing in some hidden extras that only the keen eyes among us could find. It's safe to say that I also became hooked on that game also. Between playing games on the Master System at my friend's house and having other friends I grew up with, having access to other systems later with the Mega Drive, it was usually the case of heading round to friends during the evenings or weekends to play video games. Myself and younger brother didn't get to own a console until I was 10 years old, with us wanting originally a Mega Drive but couldn't afford one, but got the Master System as it was within our budget that we could afford, and it came with 2 controllers, Sonic the Hedgehog built into the console, and an extra bonus that came with the Master Games 1 collection, featuring 3 unique games with Columns, World Soccer and Super Monaco Grand Prix. Honestly, it was a great setup, and having loads of games to play added even more appeal, and after having originally played Sonic on the Mega Drive previously, I was shocked at how good the Master System version was. It was very different in terms of its level design, but still felt similar to the 16-bit version of the game. It's safe to say that I also caused a lot of rows at home, as everyone had to fight to get me off the console, as I became totally addicted to it over the years. But I suppose when I look back, I was just addicted to video games, plain and simple. In a lot of ways, that obsession has mainly led me to creating and running multiple YouTube gaming channels, including this one, while my aim is to share my stories and passions of playing video games both old and new, while aiming to build a community of fellow gamers to also share their stories and experiences of video games over the years. If that sounds like something you would like to be more involved with, then be sure to like and subscribe for more, while also sharing these videos to other gamers who also want to get involved with sharing their own gaming memories. Though it may not have been as commercially successful as its rivals, the Sega Master System certainly left a lasting mark on the gaming industry and me as a kid. Its lineup of unforgettable games, unique accessories, and being among some of the rarest, weirdest and wackiest examples of any console, and the many innovations it introduced, will forever be remembered by gamers around the world. That proved the future of gaming was just the beginning. As the console is now celebrating its 40th year, I would love to hear your stories of this fascinating system, as it had a lot to offer, and for many of us, it was the best alternative to the NES, and even the first console we ever got to play. So let us know your history of the Sega Master System and what it means to you. And if that's not enough Master System content for you, then it might be worth also checking out this video next.